The hum of the server farm was Lena's constant companion, a digital lullaby that soothed her more than any human voice ever had. At 28, she was the invisible engine of Omnicorp's cybersecurity division. Her colleagues saw a quiet, mousy woman who wore oversized cardigans and rarely spoke in meetings. They saw the thick glasses she wore not as a fashion statement but as a shield. They saw her meticulous, almost obsessive work and dismissed it as the product of a competent but unremarkable mind. They called her the librarian behind her back. Their enemy, the hacker known only as Cerberus, saw the same thing. And that was his fatal mistake. The attack began on a Tuesday. Not with a bang but with a whisper. A single line of code, so elegant and subtle it was like a ghost walking through a solid wall, slipped past Omnicorp's multi-million-dollar firewall. By Wednesday, Cerberus owned their financial division. By Thursday, he was in their R&D servers, siphoning the blueprints for Project Chimera, a revolutionary AI that was Omnicorp's entire future. Panic was a physical presence in the war room. CEO Alistair Vance, a man built of sharp angles and sharper insults, paced like a caged tiger. How is this happening? We have the best systems in the world. Marcus, the head of security with a jawline sharper than his intellect, pointed a trembling finger at a screen. He's a ghost, sir. We can't trace him. He's using algorithms we've never seen. It was Lena, standing in the corner with a tablet clutched to her chest, who spoke softly. It's a polymorphic rootkit. He's not just hiding. He's rewriting his own signature every nanosecond. The room fell silent. Vance squinted at her. Lena, right? The analyst. What did you say? He's using a cascade failure protocol, she repeated, her voice gaining a sliver of steel. He's not just stealing data. He's planting logic bombs. At 3 a.m. tomorrow he's going to erase Chimera and collapse the entire network. He's not just a thief. He's a saboteur. Marcus scoffed. Based on what? A hunch. Based on the hexadecimal pattern in the tertiary backup logs, Lena said, her gaze not wavering. It's his signature. He's arrogant. He leaves a mark, like an artist signing a painting. He uses a Fibonacci sequence to time his payloads. Vance stared at her, a flicker of something, not quite hope but desperation in his eyes. Can you stop him? Marcus interrupted. Sir, with all due respect, this is a job for a team of experts, not a librarian. That was the moment. The underestimation. Marcus saw a librarian. Cerberus, somewhere in the world, saw a low-level analyst not worth his notice. But Lena saw the code. She saw the beautiful, malicious architecture of the attack, and she saw its one tiny flaw. Its creator's monumental ego. Give me the keys, Lena said, her voice now quiet and terrifyingly calm. Full administrative access. And a quiet room. Vance, out of options, nodded. They put her in a sterile server closet, the hum now a roar. The oversized cardigan came off, revealing a woman hunched over a keyboard, her fingers flying. On her screen, the digital world wasn't a mystery. It was a landscape she knew better than her own apartment. She had built playgrounds like this in the dark web as a teenager, under the handle Sybil, a legend who had vanished without a trace. She had walked away from that life seeking peace, but Cerberus had brought the war to her doorstep. He was good, brilliant even. His defenses were like a series of spinning blades, each one designed to shred any counterattack. But he had designed them to fight armies, to duel with other flamboyant hackers. He hadn't designed them to fight a ghost who knew every shadow. Lena didn't try to break his blades. She slipped between them. While he was focused on the frontal assault from Omnicorp's main team, a distraction she had Marcus maintain, she began weaving a trap of her own. She used his own arrogance against him. She created a false, corrupted version of the Chimera data. A honeypot so tantalizingly vulnerable that his greed would override his caution. Hours bled together. The clock ticked past 2 a.m. In the war room, Vance was pale. Lena? Anything. There was no answer from the server closet. Only the relentless tapping of keys. At 2:45 a.m., Cerberus took the bait. His digital presence, a roaring dragon, lunged for the fake data. And as he did, Lena sprung her trap. It wasn't a weapon, it was a mirror. She reflected his own cascade failure protocol back at him, using his connection as a conduit. She didn't just block him out. She followed him home. On her screen, a map of the world zoomed in, pinpointing a nondescript apartment in Minsk. She had his IP address, his personal files, his real name, Dmitry Volkov. A private chat window flickered to life on her screen, a direct line from her to him. Cerberus. Who are you? Lena's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She thought of the dismissive glances, the patronizing tones, the name librarian. She thought of Marcus's sneer. She thought of every time she had been overlooked, underestimated, and made small. She typed a single line of code, the same Fibonacci sequence he used as his signature but inverted, broken, and sent it back to him. It was the digital equivalent of a slap. Then she typed her message. Sybil. You made 2 mistakes. You threatened my home. And you thought the quietest person in the room was the weakest. She hit enter. On her command, every one of his systems, his servers, his laptops, his encrypted bank accounts began to encrypt themselves, locking him out forever. The data he had stolen from Omnicorp dissolved into digital dust. The logic bombs he had planted were disarmed. At 3:01 a.m., the Omnicorp network was clean, stable, and whole. The door to the server closet opened. Lena stood there, pale but steady, her cardigan back on. The hum of the servers was once again just a hum. It's done, she said. The silence in the war room was absolute. Vance looked from the green, healthy status reports on the main screen to the unassuming woman in the doorway. Marcus's mouth was agape. The next morning, Lena was summoned to the CEO's office. Vance offered her a promotion, a massive bonus, the head of security position. Lena declined it all. Why? Vance asked, bewildered. You saved this company. Lena allowed herself a small, sharp smile. You saw what happened when someone underestimated me. I prefer it if everyone continued to do so. It's my greatest advantage. She kept her title, her cubicle, her cardigans. But nothing was the same. The whispers of librarian now held a tone of awe and fear. Her colleagues looked at her not with pity, but with a newfound, deep-seated respect. She had learned the most powerful lesson of all. In a world obsessed with noise, the most devastating weapon is often silence. Her enemy's best move had been underestimating her. And it was a move she would gladly let every future opponent make. The promotion would have been a cage. The corner office, the meetings, the authority, it would have made her visible. And visibility, Lena had decided, was a vulnerability. Cerberus, Dmitry, had been visible in his arrogance, and now he was facing extradition to the United States, his digital empire a smoking ruin. No, Lena preferred the shadows. They were where the real work was done. For a few weeks there was a tense, watchful peace in the office. Marcus avoided her gaze. His former condescension replaced by a nervous deference that was almost more irritating. CEO Vance would give her a slow, deliberate nod whenever they passed in the hall, a silent acknowledgement of their secret. But corporate amnesia is a powerful force. By the 6th week, the crisis had faded into legend. Lena was once again the librarian, though the nickname now carried a mythical, almost reverential undertone. The new head of security, a competent woman named Anya, treated Lena with polite professionalism, giving her wide berth and whatever resources she requested without question. This was the new equilibrium Lena had wanted. But equilibrium, she should have known, is fragile. The first sign of a new storm was not a dramatic breach, but a statistical ghost. A 0.2% increase in latency on a specific transatlantic data pipeline, one that handled nothing more critical than internal HR training modules. To anyone else it was background noise. To Lena, it was a single note of dissonance in the symphony of the network. It was the same feeling she'd had before the Cerberus attack. A prickle on the back of her neck, a whisper in the code. She began her quiet investigation, a digital archaeologist sifting through layers of log files and packet data. The intrusion was different, not the flamboyant artistic signature of Cerberus, but something colder, more methodical. It was patient. It didn't steal or sabotage, it observed. It was a scalpel compared to Cerberus's sledgehammer. Late one night, tracing the ghost through a maze of proxy servers, she found it. A listener node, buried so deep within a legacy system it was practically fossilized. It wasn't stealing Omnicorp data. It was using Omnicorp's immense processing power and bandwidth as a relay, a clean, untraceable hop in a much longer chain. Someone was using her company, her network, as a staging ground for attacks on other targets. This wasn't an enemy of Omnicorp. This was a parasite. Her investigation led her to a chilling discovery. The attacks being routed through Omnicorp servers were targeting the infrastructure of a small, neutral European nation, first its power grid, then its financial institutions. The digital fingerprints were textbook, designed to point to a known state-sponsored actor. But the elegance of the routing, the sheer audacity of using a Fortune 500 company as a shield, spoke of a different caliber of mind. This was a false flag operation, and Omnicorp was being set up to take the fall. Lena went to Anya. She laid out the evidence, the latency anomalies, the ghost data packets, the malicious payloads disguised as routine traffic. Anya listened, her face grim. It's circumstantial, Lena. We can't go to Vance with this. The legal and PR fallout if we're wrong, or even if we're right and it gets out. She shook her head. We need irrefutable proof. A smoking gun. Lena understood. Anya wasn't underestimating her. She was trapped by corporate pragmatism, but waiting for a smoking gun meant waiting until the parasite decided to pull the trigger, and by then it would be too late. So Lena went back to her shadows. But this time she knew she couldn't work alone. She needed eyes on the outside. Taking a deep breath, she did something she had sworn never to do. She resurrected an old, encrypted channel and sent a message into the void. Sybil, I need a weather report. Storm patterns North Atlantic. The reply was almost instantaneous. Wraith Sybil. The Oracle speaks. I heard about Cerberus. Elegant work. What's the price for the report? Sybil. Same as always. The data. Wraith was an information broker, a ghost like her from her old life. They had a history of tense, mutually beneficial exchanges. He couldn't be trusted, but he could be relied upon to act in his own self-interest. Lena fed him the parasite's digital signature, the fragments of code she'd managed to isolate. Wraith, with his tentacles in every dark corner of the web, came back within hours with a name. Janice. And a reputation. A freelancer, a ghost for hire, known for flawless, untraceable operations. The attack on the European nation was a high-stakes contract. Wraith even provided the final piece. The deadline for the main assault was 72 hours away. Lena now had the what, the who, and the when. But she needed the why. Why frame Omnicorp? The answer, when she found it, was in the most boring place imaginable. SEC filing. Omnicorp was days away from finalizing a monumental merger with Ethelstan Industries, a rival with deep ties to the government of the very nation being targeted. If Omnicorp was implicated in a cyberterror attack, the merger would collapse, and Ethelstan would be able to scoop up the pieces for pennies on the dollar. This wasn't just espionage. It was corporate warfare of the highest order. She had the whole picture. But she was out of time, and going through official channels would be too slow. Janice was too good to be caught by a conventional defense. It was time to be Sybil again. She couldn't attack Janice directly. He was a phantom. So she decided to attack his plan. Using the access Wraith had unknowingly helped her secure, she infiltrated the command and control server Janice used to manage his parasitic connection. Instead of disabling it, she did something far more subtle. She introduced a flaw, a tiny, almost imperceptible delay in the data stream. It was like slightly warping a sniper's scope. Then she planted a breadcrumb, a single encrypted log file, hidden deep within Omnicorp's system, that detailed the true source of the attack, pointing unequivocally to Ethelstan Industries. It was a trapdoor. If the authorities ever came investigating, they would find this smoking gun she had planted for them. The final phase was a message. She crafted an email, using every ounce of her skill to make it untraceable, and sent it to the CEO of Ethelstan. The Janice contract is compromised. Omnicorp is not your shield. It is your snare. Stand down. She didn't sign it. She didn't need to. The next 48 hours were a silent war fought in the spaces between seconds. Lena watched from her cubicle as the parasitic data flow from Janice stuttered, then hesitated. She saw the frantic, encrypted chatter on the dark web channels Wraith monitored. Janice realizing his weapon was misaligned, his client getting cold feet. The carefully constructed frame was cracking. On the day of the planned attack, nothing happened. The European nation systems remained online. The news cycles were filled with mundane headlines. A week later, the merger between Omnicorp and Ethelstan was announced. The press release cited synergistic opportunities. Lena knew the truth. It was a silent surrender. Ethelstan, faced with exposure, had likely renegotiated the terms from a position of weakness. Anya came to her cubicle, a look of profound relief on her face. The anomalous latency, it's gone. Whatever it was, it just vanished. Lena looked up from her screen, her glasses reflecting the code. That's good to hear. You knew, didn't you? Anya said, her voice low. You knew how serious it was. Lena simply nodded. Anya leaned in closer. Vance knows something happened. He's not a fool. He told me to tell you that your discretionary budget has been increased. Significantly. No questions asked. It was everything she wanted. More shadow, more resources. More power to be the silent guardian. That evening, as she shut down her workstation, a final message came through the encrypted channel from Wraith. Wraith, Janice has gone to ground. He's furious. He knows someone played him. He's asking about Sybil. You've made another enemy, Oracle. A more careful one. Lena read the message, a slow smile touching her lips. She typed a single word in reply, a word that was both a statement and a warning to Wraith, to Janice, and to any future enemy who might think the quiet woman in the cardigan was an easy target. Sybil, good. She closed the terminal. The hum of the server farm was her lullaby once more. They had underestimated her again. And she hoped, for their sake, that they would never learn. The discretionary budget was a masterpiece of corporate obfuscation. It wasn't a line item in a spreadsheet. It was a digital slush fund. A series of shell companies and crypto wallets that fed into a terminal only Lena could access. It gave her the power to acquire tools, servers, and most importantly, silence without a single requisition form. It was Vance's way of building a secret weapon and keeping it secret, even from his own board. For 6 months, Lena's world was a quiet paradise of preemptive action. She wasn't just defending Omnicorp's walls. She was quietly reinforcing them with code so subtle and layered it would take a god to break through. She called it the lament configuration, a silent, ever-shifting maze for any intruder. The piece was deep, almost too deep. The disruption came not from a firewall alert, but from a single stark email to Vance's public-facing address. It bypassed all spam filters, landing in his inbox with the chilling finality of a certified letter. Mr. Vance, your company employs a remarkable asset, the one who neutralized Cerberus and thwarted the Ethelstan gambit. I know her value. I am prepared to offer you $50 million for her permanent contract. A one-time transaction. She becomes mine. Consider the alternative. If you refuse, I will not attack Omnicorp. I will simply reveal her identity, Sybil, to every intelligence agency, criminal syndicate, and rival corporation on the planet. She will cease to be your asset and become your greatest liability. You have 72 hours. Janice. Vance summoned her to his office, his face ashen. He slid a tablet across his desk. Lena read the email, her expression not changing, but a cold knot tightening in her stomach. Janice hadn't underestimated her. He had overestimated her value. He saw her not as a threat to be eliminated, but as a prize to be acquired. He's not trying to break our systems, Vance said, his voice hoarse. He's trying to buy you. Or break us by exposing you. He's panicking, Lena replied, her mind already racing. The Ethelstan failure cost him his reputation. Acquiring me is how he gets it back. This isn't an attack. It's a recruitment drive with a gun to your head. What are our options? Vance asked, and in that moment he wasn't a CEO. He was a man handing the keys to his kingdom to its true ruler. We have one, Lena said. We make the alternative he's offering seem like the better business decision. Her plan was audacious. It wasn't about hiding anymore. It was about controlling the narrative. Janice thought he could expose her? She would expose herself. But on her own terms. She spent the next 48 hours building a persona. Not Sybil the ghost, but a new myth. The architect. She created a digital trail, whisper-thin forums, scholarly articles on theoretical coding under a pseudonym, a ghostly presence on the resumes of certain high-profile security consultants. She was building a legend that was just visible enough to be plausible. Meanwhile, she used a fraction of her discretionary budget to contact Wraith. Sybil, I need a death. A professional's. Wraith, prices have gone up, Oracle. Especially for metaphysical services. Sybil. The target is Sybil. There was a long pause. Wraith, now that is interesting. You want me to kill your reputation? Sybil. I want you to stage a murder. Janice needs to believe he's won. I need a body. A digital one. Wraith, intrigued by the theatricality of it all, agreed. For a price. The stage was set. With 12 hours left on Janice's ultimatum, Lena initiated the performance. She triggered a fake catastrophic breach in a non-critical server farm. A spectacular digital fireworks show designed to look like a desperate, last-ditch attempt to cover her tracks. Then she let Wraith's assassins, a crew of hired hackers, move in. They planted evidence of a brutal, thorough hunt. Forged logs showing frantic data purges, fake messages between shadowy figures discussing neutralizing the Sybil problem, and finally the piece de resistance. The permanent, irreversible encryption of every known access point and signature tied to the Sybil identity. To anyone watching from the outside, it looked like a rival faction, perhaps remnants of Cerberus's network or Ethelstan's hired guns, had discovered Sybil's identity and ruthlessly eliminated her to prevent Janice from acquiring her. As the digital dust settled, Lena, as the architect, sent a message to a dark web channel Janice was known to monitor. It was a eulogy. The Oracle is silenced. The hunt is over. The asset is gone. Those who sought to possess her have instead destroyed her. A lesson in greed. Then, Vance replied to Janice's original email. Mr. Janice, seems you were too late. The asset you coveted has been eliminated by parties unknown. The liability you threaten no longer exists. The offer is moot. We trust this matter is concluded. Alistair Vance, CEO Omnicorp. Lena waited, her heart a steady, cold drum in her chest. This was the moment. Would Janice believe it? Or would he see the layers of the trap? Hours passed. Then a reply came to Vance's email. It was only one line, but it carried the faint, grudging respect of a master player conceding a clever move. Pity. She was a work of art. The deal is withdrawn. Janice had accepted the narrative. Sybil was dead. In the silence of her server closet, Lena allowed herself to breathe. She had sacrificed her oldest, most powerful identity to preserve her freedom. Sybil was gone, but Lena was more powerful than ever. She had proven that her greatest strength wasn't just being underestimated. It was her ability to control what her enemies saw. She could become a ghost, a librarian, or an architect at will. She opened a new, pristine terminal. The hum of the server seemed different now. Not a lullaby, but the quiet, powerful hum of a world she had remade to her own design. Janice had tried to own her, and in doing so had set her free. He hadn't underestimated her power. He had overestimated his own. And that, Lena knew with a cold, certain smile, was an even more fatal mistake. The game was forever changed, and she was now the only player who knew all the rules.